Hey guys, how's it going? Kripp here. Special video for you guys today. I actually am able to talk about the Spiritborn. So Blizzard invited me to their headquarters to check out the new class that's coming in their upcoming expansion, and it is the Spiritborn. It is an amazing class. It's kind of like a class type that they designed from the ground up that they tried to fit and theme into their expansion, Vessel of Hatred, and it was just super cool. Now, there are a few things that I want to mention. The reason I can talk about this is, well, because Blizzard also announced the class. If you want Blizzard's and basically Blizzard's introduction of it, there's going to be a lot of media for you guys to consume. Today I'm going to talk about kind of like the next level up from that, some of the specifics so you can get a general understanding of how the class works. Now, I'm not going to go into like super detail. We had about a 2-hour play session, and this play session was pretty tight because I tried to understand how the class worked myself. There's lots of different ways to play the class. I did quickly go through like aspects and stuff just to kind of get some idea of how things are likely to work later on. But it is later on. First off, there's no way that what we played is anything close to a final build, even though it was very playable. Number two, it was level 30 content. And, you know, if you have been hanging around the Diablo 4 crowd since it came out, you knew that, like, for example, the server slam, where we had about that level content, it wasn't really that representative in terms of, like, the power levels of the class, really getting it off the ground and showcasing the crazy combos of each class. None of that was really present at level like 25 and 30 in those play sessions, and I think it's fair to say that what we played is, again, very much just an introduction to the class. So, what is a Spiritborn? So, a Spiritborn is kind of like a warrior that has 4 different spirits and uses them in like very cool different ways. You generally align yourself with a spirit, but it's a little bit more than that, as I'll go into here in a moment. And I would say that it kind of draws a lot of inspiration from like the jungle warrior, maybe the Aztec warrior, the Jaguar warrior. It's got kind of that in their like trailers and intro themes, but it's a little bit more flexible than just being a Jaguar warrior. Just kind of what I've noticed, that it kind of fits the theme of that overall. But they did go ground up on this one, and while I can't talk about, like, you know, endgame viability or that kind of stuff, I can say that the main thing that we got is the theming, and the theming is a 10 out of 10. I think Blizzard designed this class in a fantastic way. They took the opportunity to kind of make an entire new type of class in, you know, their world, in an ARPG, and honestly, I kind of see it being copied by other games and ARPGs as the years go on, because it's really a 10 out of 10 design. Alright, now into some of the details. So when you are playing a Spiritborn, you align yourself with the spirits. Now there are 4 spirits, and each of the spirits kind of has their own thing going. First off, we have the Jaguar. So when you take on one of the main spirits, it converts all of your abilities to have that spirit tag. So even though you might be using a different spirit animal, well, it's fine because they're all Jaguar skills. And this is important when it comes to choosing synergies, choosing the passives on your tree. We didn't have any details for Paragons, but I'm sure it'll play a lot into the Paragons. And there are a lot of aspects and uniques. I didn't find any myself, but I was told by the devs on this meetup that there are uniques that kind of work with specific combos. Now, there's also a minor spirit, which usually has a pretty small bonus. I would say the minor spirits are not like super themed as the major spirits are, but you can pick the same one. So you can be a major in Jaguar and a minor in Jaguar. And apparently there are uniques that reward you for double picking or picking different ones. Again, I don't really know what they are, and I'm sure it's a pretty early stage, so even if one of the players on site found one of these items, we probably don't really know just how powerful they are. Probably the closest understanding we have is from Druid in the current game. Druid has kind of many different skill branches, and you can add tags to the skills to kind of change up how they work and how they scale. And that's kind of the main part of Druid, and it looks like that's very much the main part of Spiritborn. So Jaguar is every fourth attack you deal direct damage to an enemy with a Jaguar skills, and again, all your skills are Jaguar skills. Unleash additional slashes, dealing 100% of the damage of the 4 hits. So it is pretty cool. Now, most of the Jaguar skills are kind of like mobility focused, while I believe the Eagle has the only true, like, full-on mobility skill that doesn't need a target in combat. It functions kind of like a Barbarian's Leap, I would say, with a similar delay. The Jaguar skills all have more considerable, like, forward movement to them. Now, a lot of skills I've noticed have a forward movement, kind of like the Monk did in Diablo 3, where if you start using the skill and there's a little bit of a gap between you and your target, your character kind of inches up before the attack is performed. A lot of the abilities on the Spiritborn have that component, but those on the Jaguar line have a little bit more of a movement component. Now, the Jaguar skill is pretty interesting. The ultimate passive for Jaguar, again, not final, but it doubles your damage if you hit a vulnerable target, but then it removes vulnerable. So the idea is that you have a lot of small attacks and then you have big payouts. You have a lot of movement generally, but again, at level like 30, you don't know. Generally, I felt Jaguar didn't really do that much damage, but it had really big combos. And we also had the Jaguar ultimate ability. It was a pretty large area, large damage ability, and it gave you charges back if you killed stuff with it or crit a boss, I think it is. No, I think if you killed stuff with it, it gave you charges back. It had 4 charges, so very cool ultimate, and you were able to just constantly use it, which is very different from how most ultimate skills work right now in Diablo. So they are really kind of pushing things a little bit. Very cool in that regard. Now, in terms of the Eagle, so the Eagle's ability is casting an Eagle skill grants 2 Storm Feathers up to a maximum of 8, and when you evade, all Storm Feathers are fired, dealing 100% lightning damage, making targets vulnerable. Now, this was kind of weird to play, and I think it's probably the playstyle that required the most experience to play. You literally have to dash through mobs to hit them with feathers. Now, there are a lot of abilities and aspects that modify how these feathers work. You can have them all like go to a target. You can have different payouts for them. You can have different generators for them. But yes, the idea is that Eagle skills are quite high mobility skills, high uptime on vulnerable, and yeah, you often get the big damage payout by evading, which creates kind of, you know, a different play style because you're using your evade not just to dodge stuff, you're also hitting stuff. So that's pretty cool. Now, the next 2 are the ones that really kind of stood out to me as being some of the most interesting ones. First off, we have the Gorilla. So casting a Gorilla skill deals 100% thorns to enemies you hit and grants a barrier for 10% of your maximum life, up to 40% for 3 seconds. And it's like, wow, that's insane. And again, all skills are Gorilla skills. And you might be thinking that, hey, this actually looks kind of busted. Can't you get like way more thorns than you can get, for example, base damage on your weapon? Wouldn't this like multiply the damage of literally every single thing that you do if you're adequately stacking thorns? And the answer is yes. Now, in terms of the gameplay, the characters that were kind of pre-built at level 30, the thing about that is they didn't really have thorns on their gear. So the scaling from the playtest here was super limited. Now there are some gorilla skills that grant you each of those things. Some of them are going to give you bigger barriers, and some of them are going to give you temporary thorns, kind of like how Barbarian has with Flay, I believe, something like that. It's not a lot of thorns, but you can kind of like add and multiply it a little bit. Most of the thorns action that we saw in the regular game for Diablo 4 came as a result of like the tempering and masterworking in the recent seasonal update. So it's probably not really going to take off until you have a character at least kind of touching the end game with the gorilla, but I can imagine the scaling is crazy. Now, on top of the thorns damage being added to literally all your skills, because all your skills are now gorilla skills, it was actually crazier than that. It was crazier than that because the aspects for gorilla once again add the thorns to specific skills. I saw this for a few skills at least, so you can actually get more than 100% of your thorns for using certain skills and certain combos. Now again, these numbers might be tuned back and forth a little bit, but the idea of gorilla is, well, you give up some of the movement, well, you give up some of the combos, but it's highly defensive skills, and well, you have the thorns added damage. Now, there are a few other things that thorns kind of provided. One aspect that really stood out for me was like dealing up to 350% of your thorns if you block or dodge a hit. Now, I don't believe it does thorns damage. It kind of does a counterattack that works off of your thorns. But that's a lot of thorns, okay? That's a lot. Put that on your two-hander, 700% of your thorns when you block or dodge. Now, there are a lot of defensive mechanics that up your dodge. I think not a lot of them are gorilla skills, but if you play a gorilla, hey, they're all gorilla skills. And the blocking mechanic is pretty interesting. There are a number of blocking things. So there are a few new weapon types that Spiritborn uses. You can use kind of like a polearm, and you can use like staves, but one of the staves actually has, and a glaive, I believe, one of the staves actually has like block on it, kind of like a necromancer shield, and there are quite a lot of passives. I imagine in the future there'll be paragon aspects and legendary aspects that up that block. So I think the idea is that you'll be able to get almost 100% block, and then when you block a hit, it doesn't negate the damage, it just reduces it by a percentage. Again, that's how necromancer shields work right now, and you're going to have this counterattack mechanic that's based on your thorns. So Spiritborn is going to have this thing going on where you're going to stack the crap out of thorns. It's going to be added to every single skill, and you're going to block or dodge every single hit, and when you do, you're actually going to hit the enemy even harder. So very, very cool. I really love the design of Gorilla personally. And the fourth spirit is the Centipede. Now, this creepy crawler might be a little bit weird for a spirit choice, you might imagine. Everything is green. And what is green in ARPGs? Well, poison and healing. And that's basically what the Centipede does. It kind of represents balance, as they said in the kind of presentation we had on site before we got the playtest. And it's like people are wondering, how is a centipede balanced? That's not how I would describe a centipede. But yes, the idea is the balance comes, in the life and death aspect. It's that kind of balance. And it certainly has that. The Centipede has very powerful damage over time mechanics, and it has very powerful healing mechanics. Now, you can combine some of these spirits, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that you take over the skill types. So, for example, when you're playing Gorilla, you can use Centipede skills, and they are Gorilla skills, and then all your Gorilla skills are going to get various bonuses through your passives and legendary aspects. So there's a huge amount of combinations here. Again, there are like the minor spirit bonuses, but I didn't really find any of those like too crazy or too impactful. But again, that might change in the future, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of things that are going to additionally occur when you have certain combos with uniques and again paragon setups. I imagine they're going to continue doing a really good job theming out the class. Now, while it seems like Spiritborn can do like everything, well, there's one thing it can't really do, and that is summon minions. So yes, for you summoners out there, it's not going to be a complete disappointment. There are a number of skills that kind of work like minions, particularly Centipede. You're probably going to see a lot of Centipede gameplay because in this playtest it was the most busted build. There were, I think, a few bugs. One of the skills kind of summons a poison orb that follows you around and just kind of does splashing poison damage and all this stuff just constantly. So it's kind of like a minion. It just doesn't die, and it's you, so it has just pure scaling mechanics without any form of like ambiguity or bugs as the current minion builds have. Now there was an aspect to extended duration when this like poison thing kills something, and I think it was like extending at 0.5 seconds per kill, but in the playtest I think it was bugged and it was like 5 seconds per kill. So if you're playing a Centipede build and you had that skill, it's called Touch of Death, you basically had this poison orb following you around forever. And the poison damage was really substantial at low levels, so while high levels I think are going to have like crazy customizability, I think high levels are likely to favor gorilla builds, at least primarily ones that use the gorilla spirit theme. Your spirit choice is gorilla. I do feel that leveling, you're probably going to first look at Centipede builds. There's not a lot of like crits and stuff happening at low level. You don't really have any crit. You can't really get thorns that easily right away, but you can do poison damage to everything in a large area and heal a whole bunch. That is fantastic. So you might be able to kind of look into that to kind of get, you know, a bit of an idea of how you might level this thing. The class overall plays like a generator spender playstyle. It's not like a barbarian though, where your resource goes down. It goes up by, I think, 2 per second, which is the current amount for Necromancer. I would say that the generation of spirit from the basic skills generally was pretty good. I feel, if anything, Centipede kind of felt like the costs were a little high, but at the same time, it felt like the Centipede skills were just the most powerful ones when you don't have a specifically geared character, so that's probably fine as well. And again, it didn't really feel bad to use the basic skills because a lot of the basic skills had that kind of like movement component to them, so if you're just constantly using basic skills, you're also kind of just like moving through the mobs and you have a pretty good pace of the game. Like the movement in general was very good. So that's about it that I have. Overall, I was really impressed with the class, and I hope you guys enjoy the little bit of gameplay that I have here. I imagine a lot of content creators and Blizzard's going to have a lot more to reveal about this class, and I think the theming is so good. It's going to be that thing where this expansion is going to come out, and it's like 90% of players are going to be playing Spiritborn. Okay, so mentally prepare yourself for that, but so far it looks like that's going to be a pretty cool thing. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.